Well, good day. I hope you enjoyed my little snippet last week about the regimental goat, Taffy. Today I'm going to do a little bit about the Victoria Crosses. I would say that as the South Wales Borderers, they held more Victoria Crosses than any other regiment in the British Army Teeth Arm or County Corps. And some of them are quite interesting. In the first section here, I would say the most unluckiest one is William Griffiths. Now, William Griffiths was awarded his Victoria Cross in the Andaman Islands in 1864. But his VC was found in amongst a group of bodies on the battlefield at Isla. We don't know which the bodies were because of the washing of the spears, where they took the clothes off the soldiers and cut the bodies open to release the spirit. But we've got the medal here. Now, because I was talking about Isla, we'll go on to the second middle section, which is all the Zulu campaign. A lot of people come and they think about the museum as being the Zulu War Museum. But we were around a lot more than that. We started in 1689, and this was just one of the battles that the regiment fought. In the section here, we've got a couple that are unique. Melville and Cargill, saving the colours at Isla on their ride to the Buffalo River. They saved the colours, and in them days there was no such thing as a posthumous award of a Victoria Cross. But Queen Victoria stated that she wanted her officers to have her highest award for saving her colours. And it took 20 odd years for the law to be changed, and they were one of the first, if not the first, to be awarded Victoria Crosses posthumously. The one in the centre, Gonville Bromhead, was very unlucky. He died of typhoid fever in India, and he's buried in Allahabad. So he went from one battle to another area, had a battle with the disease, and lost. If you come down into the second row, you've got Henry Hook. Now, Henry Hook in the film was a waster, a blackguard, a drunkard, a wife beater, you name it, he done it. But the real Henry Hook couldn't read or write, didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't gamble. He volunteered to go into the hospital just before the Zulus attacked so he could protect the inmates. He was the last man to leave the hospital, and when he jumped out of the side window, he fell, and Fred Hitch, which is the VC below him, jumped the barricade, ran out, pulled him up, and headed him back to safety, and he was hit in the back. And 36 pieces of bone were taken out of his shoulder blade by Surgeon Reynolds on the veranda at Rockstrift without an anaesthetic. In the film, he's the one that's bandaged up, crawling around with the ammunition boxes. A little point about Henry Hook, and this is me talking, not the museum. In my eyes, his Victoria Cross is unique. And the reason I say that is out of the 1,360 odd Victoria Crosses issued since 1856, backdated to 1854, which is the crime year, he's the only recipient that I can find that was fought, awarded and presented with his Victoria Cross all on the same spot. He was presented by Lord General Wolseley on the veranda at Rockstrift about 4 months later. He stayed at Rockstrift. 1905, he died, and he's buried in Churcham in Gloucester. Every regiment in the British Army sent a representative to his funeral. So he was well respected, nothing like at all in the film. Frederick Hitch, he came out of the army and he got a job in London. And he was cleaning windows and he fell off a ladder, knocked himself out, taken to hospital. When he came round, he asked for his cloak to be brought to him. And when it was brought, they found out that his Victoria Cross had gone missing. He left that and he ended up as a London cabby. There was a crash in London. He went in, he saved the driver and the passenger. And there's a piece in the local paper about this Walkstrift hero saving lives and about his Victoria Cross being stolen. The King at the time had the Victoria Cross officially taken off him from the register of Victoria Crosses, and he was invited to the palace and reinvested with the Victoria Cross, which is the one that we've got in the museum. William Jones, very sad story. Lived in Manchester, pawned his Victoria Cross, lost or sold his ticket. He died and is buried as a pauper, and he's buried in Pauper's grave in Manchester. His Victoria Cross was found in the Second World War in a safe in the back of the pawnbroker's shop. That is the one that we've got here. John Williams. Now, John Williams, when he came out, lived in Llantarnam. His real name is John Fielding. I don't know why he called himself Williams, but all his military records is John Williams, all his civilian records is Fielding. Interesting point about him, in 1933 when he died, he was the last known recipient of the Victoria Cross, and when he was buried, Pathé News sent up and filmed it. If you go on to YouTube, put in Pathé News, John Williams, Fielding, VC, Walkstrift, you can watch his funeral. You can see his coffin on the gun carriage, taken down. You see all the regimental associations and the regiment at that time parading at the church, and the firing of the rifles over the grave. Robert Jones, another sad story. Now, Robert Jones lived in Peter's Church in Herefordshire. Came out of the army, used to have bad dreams about the conflict, and he ended up as a gamekeeper for a local farm. His body was found at the bottom of the field with gunshot wounds to the head. Within 24 hours of his body being found, he had the post-mortem, they had the inquest, and they put it down as suicide. Under ecclesiastic law, as church law, he cannot be buried in consecrated ground. But because he was well liked, and he was an older and recipient of a Victoria Cross, the elders of the church said that he could be buried, but they put down 3 conditions. 1, he couldn't use the gate, so his coffin was manhandled over the wall, and he had to be buried facing the opposite direction to everybody else, and he couldn't use the church. It's now come to light that the weapon that he used had a fault in the mechanism. It was sent off, it was tested by Churchill's in London, and he come back to say that if you dropped it, banged it, loaded it too harshly, it would go off. And what they think has happened now, he was climbing over the wall, put his weapon down, shot himself, and they tried to get the inquest overturned, so it was misadventure or non-suicide. But at the end of the day, he's already met his maker, so that's history. The third set. The interesting thing about this third set is in the centre is Company Sergeant Major J.H. Williams, Jack or John Williams. Lived for the Dingle, Ebervale. From left to right, he's got the Victoria Cross, Distinguished Conduct Medal, the Military Medal with bar, so it was awarded twice, and the yellow one at the end was the French Military Medal. He died 1953 and he's buried in Ebervale in the cemetery. This gentleman is the most decorated soldier, Welsh soldier, ever. And he's the second highest decorated soldier of all wars. Don't get many like this in a regiment, and he was in the 10th Battalion, South Wales Borderers. We've shown you the goat, and we've now shown you a bit on the Victoria Crosses. I invite you to come to the museum, support the museum, and have a look around. There's a lot more to see. Now next week, what we'll do, we'll talk a little bit on the Zulus. We'll go in the Zulu room, we'll explain some of the things that happened, some of the instruments that was used, and some of the kit. So I hope to see you next week, and I hope you're enjoying these little snippets. If you're not, you know my name, Will71 on Facebook. You can tell me what you think. And I don't mind bad language because I've heard it all before. I'm signing off. Good night for me and good night from him. Good night.